The sound of screeching tires echoed through the empty street as Emeka Olorunleke gripped the wheel of his car, his heart pounding in his chest. His breath quickened as he swerved to avoid the incoming truck, its headlights blinding him. But it was too late. The world spun in a blur, and the impact was deafening. The car flipped, rolling over in a chaotic dance, the metal grinding against the asphalt, the glass shattering in every direction. Emeka's world went black. When he finally awoke, it wasn't the familiar comfort of his family mansion that greeted him. Instead, he was in a sterile, cold hospital room, the beeping of machines filling the silence. His body felt heavy, numb, and when he tried to move, a sharp pain shot through his chest. Panic gripped him. "Where am I?" he muttered hoarsely, his throat dry. His mother, Ngozi, was sitting beside him, her face pale and tear-streaked. "You're in the hospital, Emeka. You've been in an accident," she whispered, her voice trembling. You're going to be okay. We'll get through this. I promise." But Emeka couldn't feel his legs. He tried to lift them, but there was nothing, no sensation, no movement. A wave of terror flooded through him as reality set in. He was paralyzed. "How?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Ngozi clutched his hand, her fingers cold. It's a miracle you're still alive. The doctors said the car flipped several times. The injury," her voice cracked, unable to finish the sentence. But Emeka could see the pain in her eyes. The door to the room opened, and Chief Solomon Olorunleke stepped in, his face a mask of worry. But when his eyes landed on Emeka, they hardened, the usual warmth replaced with something colder. "How is he?" he asked, his voice flat. "He's awake," Ngozi replied softly, her eyes meeting her husband's. "He's going to need us. We have to be strong for him." Chief Solomon didn't respond right away. He stood there, as though lost in thought, before looking at Emeka with a faint nod. "You'll recover," he said, his voice a little too controlled. "But we have to discuss something important." Emeka frowned, confused. What are you talking about?" "We need to talk about your future," Chief Solomon said, sitting at the edge of the bed, his gaze cold and distant. This accident has changed everything. I've been thinking about what comes next." Emeka could hear the detachment in his father's words, and a sinking feeling filled his stomach. "What do you mean, father?" "You're not going to be able to run the company anymore, Emeka," Chief Solomon stated bluntly, as though it were a simple fact. "I can't rely on you now. You're not the son I thought you were." The words hit Emeka like a slap in the face. His mind raced, trying to process what his father had just said. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His throat tightened, and for a moment he thought he might suffocate under the weight of his father's rejection. His entire life, his dreams, shattered in an instant. All the hard work, the plans he'd made to take the company to greater heights, it didn't matter anymore. His own father had just written him off. "Father, We'll manage things for now," Chief Solomon interrupted, standing up. "I'll handle the business. You just focus on recovering. I'll send for the doctor." He turned to leave, but before he reached the door, he paused and looked back at Emeka. "You're lucky to be alive. Don't forget that." With that, Chief Solomon walked out of the room, leaving Emeka and his mother in stunned silence. Emeka wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the words wouldn't come. His body felt as though it had been stripped of everything that mattered. "Why did he say that?" Emeka's voice trembled, his eyes searching his mother's face. Ngozi didn't answer right away. She took a deep breath, then placed a gentle hand on his. "Your father. He's scared, Emeka. He doesn't know how to deal with this. But you can still make something of yourself, I know you can." "Why would he do that? Why? Why does he want to push me away?" Emeka's voice cracked as the weight of his father's words sank in. The tears he'd been holding back finally came, streaming down his face. He was paralyzed, rejected by the one person he thought would never abandon him. Ngozi's eyes filled with tears as well, but she remained strong. "Because he's afraid, Emeka. He's afraid of change. He doesn't understand that you're still the same person. You still have your mind, your spirit. And that's what matters." The days that followed were a blur. Emeka's recovery was slow, painful. The physical therapy was grueling, and though he pushed himself, there were times when he felt as though he would never be able to move again. His father's words echoed in his mind constantly. "You're not the son I thought you were." The pain in his body was nothing compared to the ache in his heart. He couldn't shake the feeling of being discarded, abandoned, like he no longer mattered. But there was something deeper, something that stirred within him. A fire that had been ignited in the darkest moment of his life. He wasn't going to let this break him. He couldn't. One evening, as Emeka sat alone in his hospital room, staring out the window at the setting sun, he made a vow to himself. He would prove his father wrong. He would rise from this, no matter what it took. The next few months passed in a blur of medical appointments, therapy sessions, and endless hours spent lying in bed, thinking. Emeka's body healed slowly, but his mind was on fire. He couldn't get the words his father had said out of his head. "You're not the son I thought you were." But he would show his father just how wrong he was. By the time Emeka was discharged from the hospital, he had already begun to teach himself computer programming. He spent hours each day reading books, watching tutorials online, and practicing coding. He had no formal training, no mentors, just raw determination. He knew that if he could learn this skill, he could change his life. He could prove to his father that he was more than just a body in a wheelchair. With the help of a few local contacts, Emeka set up a small phone and computer repair shop in the outskirts of Asaba. It wasn't much at first, just a tiny space with a few old computers and broken phones. But Emeka worked tirelessly, fixing devices, building relationships with customers, and gradually expanding his business. One afternoon, a man walked into his shop, holding a laptop that looked like it had been through hell. The man was a banker from Warri, desperate to get his laptop fixed. "Please, I need this working by tomorrow. I can't afford to lose the data," he pleaded. Emeka examined the laptop carefully, and something caught his eye, a potential security breach in the system. Without thinking, he dug deeper, running a series of diagnostics. What he uncovered sent a chill down his spine. The bank's entire system was vulnerable to a cyber attack. He looked up at the banker, who was pacing nervously. "I can fix this," Emeka said calmly. "But you need to let me do more than just repair your laptop. I can help you secure your system. If you don't act fast, you're going to lose everything." The banker stared at him, stunned. "What do you mean?" Emeka explained the flaw in detail, and the man's eyes widened. "I had no idea. Can you really help?" "I can," Emeka said confidently. "But it's going to cost you. This is serious." The banker agreed, and Emeka set to work. Over the next few days, he poured his expertise into fixing the security flaw, setting up firewalls, and strengthening the bank system. By the time he was done, he had saved the bank from a potentially catastrophic breach. When the work was completed, the banker came back, visibly relieved. "You've done more than I expected," he said, handing Emeka a check. "I'll make sure the bank gives you a contract. You're a genius." That moment marked the beginning of Emeka's journey to greatness. It wasn't just about fixing computers anymore. It was about changing the world, one line of code at a time. And no matter what his father thought, Emeka knew one thing. He was just getting started. Emeka's rise didn't happen overnight, but the seeds of change were sown during the darkest months of his life. From the shadows of his father's rejection, he began to thrive. The world had thrown its worst at him, yet he stood tall. Every day, he immersed himself in the world of programming, learning faster than he ever had before. He'd spent sleepless nights fixing phones and computers, gradually building a reputation in Asaba. It was a modest start, but it was his. He made a name for himself, one job at a time. But even with the small victories, Emeka knew he was destined for more. His father's words still echoed in his mind, taunting him, "You're not the son I thought you were." But every time they haunted him, they only fueled his determination. In a corner of his small shop, the phone rang. Emeka, absorbed in his latest project, hesitated before answering. "Olorunleke, how can I help you?" he said, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. "Emeka, my name is Chuka. I've heard about your work," came the voice on the other end. "I'm with First National Bank in Warri, and we need your help." Emeka's heart skipped a beat. The bank. The one he'd seen advertised on billboards across the state? This was a chance, a big break. He immediately pushed his doubts aside. "I'm listening," Emeka replied, his voice calm but eager. "We've had some issues with our security system," Chuka continued. "We need someone who can not only repair it but build a secure network that can withstand attacks. And from what I've heard, you're the best for the job." The weight of the opportunity hit him, but Emeka didn't hesitate. "I'll take the job," he said firmly, his thoughts already racing. "When can we meet?" The following week, Emeka found himself seated across a polished wooden table in a sleek, modern conference room at First National Bank. The high-powered executives looked down on him, assessing him as if he were just another candidate vying for a position. The sharpness in their eyes was intimidating, but Emeka didn't flinch. He wasn't the same young man who had been cast aside by his father. He was a survivor now, shaped by pain and reborn in the fire. Chuka led the meeting, introducing Emeka to the team. The bank's cybersecurity experts were present, their expressions skeptical. "Emeka, we need you to take a look at our systems and advise us on how to proceed. You've heard the rumors about the potential breach." Chuka asked. Emeka nodded, his gaze sweeping across the room. He had studied their infrastructure in detail. He could already spot the weaknesses from a mile away. "The problem is deeper than you think," Emeka began, his voice steady as he addressed the executives. "It's not just about patching up the weak points. The entire network needs to be restructured. From the ground up." The room fell silent, the tension thick. They were all waiting for him to prove himself. And Emeka was ready. For the next few hours, he outlined a comprehensive plan. He spoke about firewalls, encryption, and securing remote access. He detailed how the bank's data was vulnerable and how he could safeguard it against even the most sophisticated cyber attacks. As the meeting drew to a close, the CEO of the bank leaned forward, a smile creeping onto his face. "You've got the job, Emeka," he said, nodding. "We're putting our trust in you." Emeka's chest swelled with pride. This was it. This was the moment he had worked for. He wasn't just some broken man in a wheelchair anymore. He was a force to be reckoned with. Back at his shop, Emeka wasted no time. He closed the doors to his small office, shutting out the world. For the next few weeks, he immersed himself in the project, working day and night, pushing his limits. The bank's network was vast, and every layer of security he added made him more determined to prove his worth. With each breakthrough, Emeka's confidence grew. It wasn't just about fixing problems, it was about creating something that could withstand anything. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he fortified the bank's defenses, meticulously patching every vulnerability. He was a master of his craft, and this was his masterpiece. In the midst of all the work, Emeka's phone buzzed. A message from his mother, Ngozi. He hadn't seen her in a few weeks, but she had always been his rock. "Emeka, I'm so proud of you. Don't forget to rest. Your father has been asking about you." His father. The words still stung, even after everything he had accomplished. But Emeka had moved on. He no longer needed his father's approval. He had found his own path, one he was carving with his own hands. Emeka glanced at the clock. It was late, but he knew he couldn't stop. There was still so much to do. Weeks later, Emeka stood in front of a room full of executives at First National Bank, presenting his final report. The security system he had built was impenetrable. The boardroom was silent as they reviewed his work, their expressions unreadable. When the CEO stood up and clapped his hands, the room followed suit. "Impressive, Emeka," the CEO said, his voice filled with respect. "You've exceeded every expectation. The job is yours, full-time, starting immediately." Emeka's heart raced. This was more than just a contract. This was his entry into the highest echelons of the business world. It was validation that everything he had sacrificed, everything he had worked for, had not been in vain. He stood up, shaking hands with the CEO. "I'll take it," Emeka replied, his voice filled with conviction. "Thank you for trusting me." The news of Emeka's success spread quickly, and soon, his small business, Olorunleke, became a household name. Clients lined up at his door, eager to work with him. His reputation for excellence was unmatched, and his skills in cybersecurity became highly sought after. But even as Emeka's business grew, he never lost sight of what mattered most. He gave back to his community, funding programs to help young people get into technology. He built schools, sponsored scholarships, and mentored those who came from the same place he did, the place where nothing was guaranteed, and success had to be fought for. One day, as Emeka was finishing a meeting with a client, he received a call from his mother. "Emeka, your father wants to speak with you," she said softly. Emeka's stomach tightened. "What does he want?" "He just wants to apologize," Ngozi replied. He's not the same man he was." Emeka didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to ignore the call, to continue on his path without looking back. But another part of him, the part that still loved his father, felt a pull. "I'll talk to him," Emeka said, his voice steady. When he finally spoke to Chief Solomon, it was nothing like their last conversation. His father's voice trembled as he spoke. "Emeka, I was wrong. I never should have doubted you. You've become a man I can be proud of." Emeka listened, his heart pounding. It was the apology he had been waiting for, but it didn't hold the same weight anymore. He had moved on. "I forgive you, father," Emeka said, his voice calm. "But I've built something of my own now. And I'm not that boy anymore. I'm someone else." The call ended, and Emeka sat back in his chair. His journey wasn't just about proving his father wrong, it was about proving to himself that he was capable of anything. He had built his empire from the ground up, and no one could take that away from him. Emeka stood tall, a man reborn from the ashes of his past. And as the sun set over Lagos, he knew that this was just the beginning. Months passed, and Emeka's empire continued to grow. Olorunleke became one of the most sought-after cybersecurity firms in West Africa, and Emeka's name was synonymous with excellence. The work he had done for First National Bank had opened doors to new clients, and he was now dealing with high-profile contracts. Governments, private sectors, and international corporations were reaching out to him, recognizing his expertise in securing sensitive data and infrastructure. But even as his business flourished, Emeka could never fully escape the shadow of his past. His father's words still lingered in his mind, but now they felt distant. His success had become his own, and every accomplishment was a testament to the strength he had found within himself. One evening, as Emeka walked through his office in Lagos, he couldn't help but reflect on how far he had come. The sleek glass buildings surrounding him were a far cry from the crumbling streets of Asaba where he had once struggled to survive. He had gone from being discarded, a broken man in a wheelchair, to standing tall as a successful entrepreneur and philanthropist. But despite his success, Emeka felt a nagging emptiness in his heart. He had built his empire, but he still felt as though something was missing. The void left by his father's rejection and the painful memories of his past were things Emeka couldn't shake, no matter how much wealth or recognition he gained. The phone buzzed on his desk, pulling him from his thoughts. It was a message from Ngozi, his mother. "Emeka, your father has fallen ill. He wants to see you." Emeka stared at the message for a long time. His heart sank. It had been years since he last spoke to his father. The last time they had truly connected was when his father apologized for his mistakes. Emeka had forgiven him, but deep down, he still felt the weight of that betrayal. "Is it too late to fix things?" Emeka whispered to himself. Emeka arrived at the family mansion in Asaba the following morning. The familiar gates that once symbolized warmth and family now felt cold and distant. The mansion looked the same as it had when he left, grand and imposing, but there was a heaviness in the air that Emeka couldn't ignore. Ngozi met him at the door, her eyes tired but warm. She embraced him briefly before leading him inside. "Your father's upstairs," she said quietly, her voice filled with a mixture of concern and sorrow. "He's not well, Emeka. He wants to make things right before it's too late." Emeka nodded, his mind racing. As he walked upstairs to his father's study, memories flooded his mind, the good ones, the bad ones, and everything in between. He had once been his father's pride, the heir to the family legacy. But now, he felt like a stranger in his own home. When he entered the study, Chief Solomon was sitting by the window, his once strong frame now frail and weak. The years had taken their toll on him. His face was drawn, and the usual fire in his eyes had dimmed. "Emeka," his father said softly, his voice weak, I knew you would come. Emeka stood still for a moment, unsure of what to say. The man who had once cast him aside was now sitting before him, asking for his forgiveness. I'm here, father, Emeka said quietly, his voice steady despite the emotion swirling inside him. What is it you want to say? Chief Solomon struggled to lift his gaze, but when he did, there was a vulnerability in his eyes that Emeka had never seen before. I was wrong, he said, his voice filled with regret. I pushed you away when you needed me the most. I didn't understand what you were going through, Emeka. I thought you were weak, but I was wrong. You've proven me wrong in every way. Emeka felt his chest tighten. The years of resentment, the pain, the rejection, everything he had carried with him, seemed to rush to the surface. But instead of anger, there was a strange calmness inside him. You don't need to apologize, father, Emeka said, his voice filled with emotion. I've forgiven you. I did a long time ago. Chief Solomon's eyes filled with tears, and he reached out for Emeka's hand. I've missed you, Emeka. I've missed the son I once had. And I'm sorry for everything I did to push you away. I know I can't change the past, but I want you to know that I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you. For a long moment, neither spoke. Emeka's heart raced as he looked down at his father's hand, grasping his weakly. There was a rawness in the air, a mixture of pain and healing, of brokenness and reconciliation. I've done everything on my own, father, Emeka said quietly, his eyes searching his father's face. But I want you to know that I've never stopped loving you. And it's not too late to fix things between us. The old man's lips trembled as he nodded. I don't know how much time I have left, but I want you to know that I love you, Emeka. And I'm so proud of the man you've become. Over the next few days, Emeka stayed at the mansion, caring for his father and reconnecting with the family he had once felt so distanced from. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. He spent hours talking with his father, learning about the man he had once been, the mistakes he had made, and the regrets that weighed on his heart. It was a painful journey, but Emeka knew that healing was possible. By the time Emeka left Asaba, he had found peace. His relationship with his father had been mended, not completely, but enough to feel like a new chapter had begun. He had forgiven his father, and in doing so, he had freed himself from the chains of the past. Back in Lagos, Emeka continued to build his empire. Olorunleke flourished, and his reputation in the tech world grew. But now, with his family behind him and his father's forgiveness in his heart, he felt ready to take on even greater challenges. He poured his success into causes that mattered to him: education, tech literacy for disadvantaged youth, and medical research for those with disabilities. He never forgot where he came from and never took his success for granted. The months that followed saw Emeka's business expand even further. Olorunleke was now a leading cybersecurity firm, and Emeka's name was synonymous with innovation and excellence. He had built an empire from the ground up, and he wasn't stopping anytime soon. He poured his success into causes he believed in, donating to orphanages, supporting tech education for underprivileged youth, and funding medical research for spinal injuries. Emeka had learned the hard way that success wasn't just about wealth, it was about making a difference in the world. And that's exactly what he intended to do. One evening, as he stood before a room full of young tech entrepreneurs, Emeka delivered a speech that summed up everything he had learned. Don't let your circumstances define you, he said, his voice steady and filled with conviction. You are capable of more than you realize. And when you face setbacks, remember that it's not the end. It's just the beginning of a new journey. The room erupted in applause as Emeka smiled, knowing that his story had just begun. He had faced the worst life had to offer and emerged victorious. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, he was ready. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next video.